History amendment. Until 5 centuries ago, the entire Eastern world, i.e. the continent of Europe, Africa and Asia, was completely unaware of the existence of the countries of the Western Hemisphere, America, Canada and other countries. At the end of the 15th century, when the European adventure began, different countries and regions were discovered one after another. On October 12, 1492, Columbus reached the Bahamas near the east coast of America. This place is located near Florida on the southeast coast of the United States. This was the first step of a European on American soil. Then the discovery of different places started one after the other. In 1524, the French explorer Giovanni Verrazzano entered New York with an expedition moving north from Carolina. In 1579, Francis Drake entered San Francisco Bay on the west coast and founded a British colony. In 1607, Captain John Smith landed on the coast of Virginia with 105 soldiers in 3 ships and established the first British colony named Jamestown. In 1624, Dutch colonies were established in the areas of Albany and New York under the name of New Netherland. In this way, the colonies of different European countries were formed. In these 9 settlements, there was conflict and sometimes even war. At the same time, the British government began to treat its colonies in a truly colonial way. To exploit them, new taxes were imposed day by day. Due to which signs of restlessness and rebellion began to arise in them, which eventually took the form of the independence movement. We will briefly illustrate our point by presenting a few examples here. On December 1, 1660, the British Parliament passed the Navigation Act, which regulated trade with the colonies according to their interests. On September 8, 1664, British troops captured New Netherland. In 1676, Nathaniel Bacon led a peasant revolt against British rule. Bacon died and the rebellion failed. On April 6, 1712, slaves revolted in New York. In 1764, the British government imposed a tax on various edible items in the colonies by implementing the Sugar Act. In 1765, the British Parliament passed the Stamp Act to cover the expenses of its forces. On October 7 of the same year, the colonists convened a Congress in New York and issued the Declaration of Rights. In 1767, tea and many other items were taxed. In 1770, British troops fired on a crowd demonstrating in Boston, killing 5 men. Among them was the leader of the protesters. This incident was called the Boston Massacre. In May 1773, East India Company tea ships in Boston, New York and Philadelphia were returned. A tea ship was set on fire on October 4 in protest of the tax on tea, and on December 16 the stocks of tea in Boston were thrown overboard. This event was called the Boston Tea Party. On September 5, 1774, the First Continental Congress was held in Philadelphia, in which the resolution of civil disobedience against the British government was approved. Addressing the Virginia Convention on March 23, 1775, Patrick Henry said these historic words: "Give me liberty or give me death, give me freedom or death." On June 7, 1776, in the Continental Congress, Richard Henry Lee presented a resolution that these united colonies have the right to remain free and independent. This resolution was passed on July 2 and the Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4. In March 1782, the British cabinet recognized American independence. In 1789 George Washington was elected President of the United States and in 1796 he retired from this position. George Washington was a great leader of America. About him, the saying, "First in war, first in peace, first in the hearts of his countrymen," is very famous. When Washington left office, he warned his nation to never form a permanent alliance with a foreign government. We now come back to the 4th of July Declaration of Independence and explore the pages of history for the inhuman barbarism inflicted by the British forces on the patriots who signed the Declaration of Independence. This is a heartwarming story and instructive for freedom fighters around the world. A total of 56 great men signed the Declaration. They were very comfortable and happy people. Among them, 14 were lawyers, 13 belonged to the judiciary, i.e. judges, 11 were traders, 12 were landowners and forest owners, 1 was a priest and 3 were doctors. 2 belonged to other prestigious professions. All these revolutionaries signed the Declaration of Independence knowing that they would be punished in the form of arrest and death. Among them, 5 signatories were arrested by the British occupying forces and subjected to such brutal torture that they lost their lives on charges of treason. The houses of 12 revolutionaries were destroyed and burnt. The sons of 2 revolutionaries who were serving in the revolutionary military forces were killed. 2 sons of another revolutionary were arrested and disappeared. Out of the 56 revolutionaries, 9 participated in the military struggle and died from the agony of the revolution and their injuries. A prosperous and wealthy merchant from Virginia finds his merchant ships on the high seas seized by the British Navy. He sold his house and the rest of his possessions to pay off his debts and die a very poor man. Another revolutionary, Thomas McKean, was so persecuted by the British Army that he had to change his residence and move his family around. He continued to work in the Congress without salary. His family continued to live in hiding. All his belongings were looted. And he had to spend the rest of his life in poverty. British Army soldiers and marauding volunteers William Ellery, Lyman Hall, George Clymer, George Walton, Button Gwinnett, Thomas Hayward Jr., Edward Rutledge, and Arthur Middleton, looted and destroyed. At the Battle of Yorktown, Thomas Nelson noted that British General Cornwallis had captured Nelson's house and made it his headquarters. He quietly suggested to Revolutionary General Washington that his house be shelled. The house was destroyed and Nelson collapsed and died. Francis Lewis's house was destroyed and his wife was imprisoned. After a few months, she met the real creator. John Hart was separated from his wife's deathbed. Her 13 children fled for their lives. John Hart's farm and his flour mill were destroyed. For a year he hid in forests and caves, and when he returned home, his wife was dead and the children were gone. After some time, he himself died of a broken heart. Robert Morris and Philip Livingstone also had to go through the same situation. On September 22, 1776, British forces executed Nathan Hale, a leader of the independence movement, on charges of espionage. Before dying, these historic words were uttered from his tongue: "I regret that I have only one life to give to my country." All the leaders of the American Revolution had to go through similar sacrifices. All these people were prosperous and educated people. They were not criminals, rioters, or subversives. All of them were subjects of the British government and belonged to the same race as the rulers. All the colonists of America came from England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and various European countries. Their religion was also the same as that of the rulers. All of them were Roman Catholics and Protestants who believed in Christ. If they would have kept quiet, they could have got big positions in the government and they could have lived a very comfortable life. But these great revolutionary people gathered in Philadelphia on July 4, 1776 from all corners of the country to free the American people from the scourge of British imperialism and signed the Declaration of Independence by joining the Constitutional Convention of Congress. He preferred freedom over his comfort and vowed that